Hi friends, strangers, internet. My name is Emily, if I'm perfectly am. I love colorful makeup and colorful language. And I love green eyeshadow. I love pink eyeshadow. I absolutely do not want the new Natasha Denona Retro Glam palette. And I just want to talk about it. I have indeed made a pink and green palette to soothe my soul. So I'm gonna show you that, and we're just gonna talk about this new release and some feelings I have on it and criticisms, and I don't know. We're gonna see what happens. If you like colorful makeup, if you like bitches with lots of opinions, or you just like cute fat babes, I hope you will subscribe. Let's just get started. Let's just talk about it. Look, I have been a vocal critic of the brand and the makeup artist, Natasha Denona. If you've been here before, that's not really news. But there are aspects of the makeup line that make me want to want it. I have purchased a couple of things from the brand, but it has been quite a while. And I keep looking at releases and just like, look, I want, actually now it's not so much a want, because I do feel like I have watched the brand long enough, and I've also heard shitty things about the person behind it that make me want less. But I think because it is such a beloved brand in at least the kind of beauty community, it's like I keep trying to understand the draw and understand the just the whole thing. I love the fact that her palettes are magnetized, except for the minis, which is why. I love that in theory, because I am a lover of single eyeshadows. Single eyeshadows are like my favorite eyeshadow format, and so I love the idea of being able to move shadows around using the singles. So like, I love that in theory about the brand. I have used some of the face products and have had hit and miss experiences, but the palettes, I bought the gold palette. I was a clown. This was, I think, fall of 2019 when I purchased it. At that point in time, the new Golden Child was the Metropolis palette, which I thought was really pretty, but I also thought was very redundant, and it didn't texturally look as interesting. And this is the thing, texture. I feel like the brand has not nailed texture variety in a long time. And of the videos that I've already seen on this palette, yet again, it's not doing it for me. So I hold a lot of criticism towards palettes stronger than maybe even like singles or face products or something, because they are a package deal. And so with Natasha's brand, I do feel like it's a little bit tricky, because I'm like, okay, well, it is customizable, so I could, you know, swap, but I don't want to spend the Natasha Denona price points for a palette I have to customize. All of this to say, I thought the trichrome palette would get me. I thought even the Circle Local palette would get me. I thought the pastel palette would get me. And Retro Glam was the next one where I was like, I could see that, maybe. I could see me maybe falling into that hype, because the mini is still like, it's like on this long term, like, I would buy that if I just had the extra money laying around. And then it got released, or it got leaked or whatever. And I was like, okay, yeah, I think it's just confirmed that like my brain and Natasha Denona color palettes, color stories, we do not compute. We do not work together. I don't understand the hype. And I think that one of the reasons why like I get stuck on like talking about Natasha Denona releases is because I'm just like, am I missing something? But I think that's my recurring thing, being in the beauty space. And obviously I'm not in like the big beauty guru space. I'm not shopping a lot of mainstream releases. But Natasha Denona, Melt, Pat McGrath sometimes. Oh, I can think a lot of times. Those are just a couple of brands that like I think about that way. So yeah, I've already seen a couple videos on this retro glam palette, and it confirms like the things that I feel, where I was like, it is so tonally close. A lot of the colors look similar. There doesn't look to be a lot of textural difference. And there doesn't look to be a lot of depth. I think tonally close is what I already said. But like, those are things that I want and need in palettes. I need a range of finishes. I need a range of depths. I need colors to not be so close in a palette. And those are the things that I keep seeing happening in that brand's palettes. So all of that to say, I don't want that palette. I didn't even want it at the leak. Those tones of greens and grays just do not draw me in. But I still love pink and green eyeshadow. So I made the Retro Glam a la Emily. This is not a dupe palette. I wouldn't even call it a Retro Glam. I kind of want to call it a Rose Glam. I don't know. But consider this to be my current, as of November of 2022, current ultimate pink and green palette. So that's the thing. Green to me, my happy greens are olives and chartreuses, greens that really lean into the yellow or the green, not blue green or not even gray green as much. And that's totally based on my own skin tone. Yellowy greens they just do it for me. But even with the pinks, like I want pinks that have a little bit more depth and saturation to them. I also think red is such a nice, or berry is such a nice way to add deepening tones that aren't just gray, that don't just desaturate things so much. I lean, I guess, more towards grungy than desaturated. I think grungy and desaturated kind of live in the same space. Like I think some palettes that are, or some color stories that read grungy are also desaturated or muted, but not everything that is muted or desaturated is grungy. And while I can look at the color story of the Retro Glam and I understand it in a maybe aesthetic way, but not in a makeup way. In a makeup way, like I know that like, I was watching Tina, Fancy Face. She built an amazing alternative to that palette. And you know, she had a lot of positive things to say about like the looks that came from that palette that Natasha Denona or Natasha Denona's team created. I don't even feel that level of fondness. Like those looks don't even do it for me in that way. I think for me, just the concept of like pink and green is such a beautiful color. It's such a beautiful place to start with the color story. And we've seen it a lot in the makeup world. I have done like build your own palette, single palette kind of videos and concepts before, because we've had the Give Me Glow Vintage Rose, we've had the Pat McGrath Divine Rose 2 that totally needed some greens in there in my opinion. We've had, you know, Retro Glam, the Glam Mini or the Retro Mini, that Lime Crime Venus XL. Like we've seen pink and green a lot. But I still feel like so many brands missed that mark. Now, some of the indie brands, like the Vintage Rose and stuff, like I could see it a little more, but I don't own a pink and green palette myself. I own a pink palette because I have Divine Rose 2. It was a gift to me. No, the Odin's Eye Gila palette. Okay, another pink and green example. That one's pretty. That one is nice. But anyway, the whole point is that I love pink and green and I wanted to make a palette. So that's what I did. Now, something that I talk about a lot with makeup and palettes is that I don't enjoy large pre-made palettes. For the most part, if it's more than 15 pans, and even 15 pans is pushing it, but if it's more than 15 pans, I just get overload. I just get it shut down. But with single eyeshadow, I have all of my green and yellow single shadows in a giant palette. And it does not overwhelm me because I am very familiar with, or I'm pretty familiar with the single eyeshadows that I own. And I have them in some kind of monochromatic order that really works for my brain. My brain really works that way. And it's also why I like the Blend Buddy Blends palette, because it's bigger, but it's a monochromatic depth, color, layout is just, for my brain, mwah, perfection. So when it comes to pre-made palettes, my brain does not function with larger palettes. But when it comes to palettes I build myself, I have found that, so I'm a new owner of this Terra Moon's 20 pan palette, which is quite a stunner. I find that I can really work with larger palettes. And the thing is like, I know I can mix and match and take things that I can edit this as I use it. So sometimes I will go a little larger in a palette that I'm making myself because I can edit as I go. And I even did that. The first layout of this, it had 21 shades. And I really wanted this like row by row by row kind of concept where we had kind of different textures in each row, kind of. And then we also had kind of color stories going across. Like, this fucking functions for my brain. It just does. This to me is green and pink in a way that just really works for my brain. And I try to go less true vibrant. Like, I don't have a grass green in there. I don't, okay, the deeper pink that I have is pretty bright, but like, it's not a hot pink. It's not like, you know, we're not going into neon. And even the shimmers, I feel like, you know, we have like some very shiny shades and some shades that do have some flashes of hot colors, but like Opulent from Cleona is my ultimate rose gold, and I just felt like it belonged here. Could I edit this down to 15? I think I could, but I really like where it's at now. And I have done multiple looks with this palette already. And I'm either gonna put them in this video or I'm gonna put them up as shorts or something else. Maybe editing Emily will pop in here to update you. This is the thing for me, is like when I looked at the Retro Glam palette and I saw how it was leaning into these grays, and that's partially because of the sagey tones. And I felt like, but why couldn't it have leaned into like the pink and berries? And I'm sure the answer is because they have the retro palette already, which is pinky berry tones, I guess. But you know, I don't think we needed the retro and the retro glam. I think that's really where my brain goes to. I think there could have been a really beautiful pink and green palette that was inspired by the mini and extrapolated on that color story, actually, that olivey pink color story that worked. And I just don't get the hype. And I'm gonna keep yelling into the void about it because I don't understand. I don't understand it. I'm gonna go through and swatch everything for you and give you all the shadow information and all of that good stuff and maybe more. We shall see. There are timestamps and things, chapters in this video so that you can skip around however you see fit. In case you're new to this kind of like duping the vibes, which is kind of this but not, and just like building your own palette, I don't do this to like save money on not buying something. Sometimes I can, definitely, because I can use a color story for a while before deciding if I actually want that new thing. Sometimes I do end up still wanting the thing. But because I already enjoy single eyeshadows and I have these in my collection, it's a really nice way for me to play and explore my own collection. Like this palette, this is kind of a sidebar, but so one of the new shades that I have from the Terra Moon order that I got, there's a shade called Coalescence that is like, I love it. I love it. It's so like flaky and shiny and bright. It's like a chartreuse to pink. It's not in this palette because I know I would use that for every single look. And it's also a little more on the intense side. And I love intense, but I felt like it might not do the rest of the palette well. It might, you know, make it too much of a spotlight. Like, it's just an interesting thing where I was like, I know I can put this color in this palette and I would love it and it would be so me. But I also know I have another new shade that I will show you in the swatches that is pink and green that is going to get less love because it's not Coalescence. So let's put that in the palette. So, you know, it's also a good exercise for me because I can put in shades that I definitely love and reach for regularly. I can put in some new stuff that like I want to kind of like play with, and then I can also put in some stuff that I just neglect. I just don't reach for often, and they work really well. Two of the shadows I have on my eyes today, I don't reach for them much at all, and I'm like, why not? I mean, I know why, but still. So anyway, yeah, now we're gonna get into swatches. The first row is, I'm calling my golden olive row. Cleona Weld is first up. So this is an example of tying our green and our red together along with the brown. Next up we have Recluse from Vengeful Cosmetics. This is a very green brown. I'm gonna build this up just a little bit. So next up we have this golden olive. This might have been a repanned shadow. I know that there was a shade in one of the Alamar palette. I put it in here because I don't reach for foil metallics very often because I love my duochromes and multichromes. But I feel like this is one of those tones that just really can make a very special look with the right kind of other shades around it. The last shade in this row is Eden. It is a deep green matte from Vengeful Cosmetics. It's almost a blue green, which I think adds beautiful depth to, you know, something like Weld or some of our other greens in the palette. So that's the first row. The second row kind of takes us from golden olive into chartreuse. The Cleona shade in this row is Patina, which is very beloved and also a little bit, it's been through the wear. Yeah, it's gonna have to get repressed again. Luckily, I saved it. And by I mean the palette. Hold please. This was just what was on my finger from cleaning up. You can see on the camera just how intensely gold it goes, but then it also goes very green. I never think of Patina as that gold. The next shade in this row is E-Electric from Menagerie Cosmetics. This is honestly just a perfect chartreuse, just intense matte. I also have a bad time trying to swatch on camera, so I'm just gonna swatch and show you. The third shade in this row is Neutron Star. This was the shade that I was speaking on when I was talking about coalescence earlier. So Neutron Star is a beautiful green that has some pink in it. The shine on it tends to go green. Usually if I'm holding my hand from far away, that like high spot of shine is green. I mean, it's pink, not green. And because it's a shiny texture, but like not as flaky, it really layers over other tones of green beautifully. Speaking of other tones of green, this is Habitat from Lethal Cosmetics. I feel like this is the olive matte of like my dreams. I don't know, I think it connects the greens together because Habitat works really beautifully with E-Electric, and it also works with the Recluse shade from Lethal Cosmetics in the first row. The third row in this palette is all shimmers, and it's kind of like my connecting row from green to pink. Most of these shimmers are pink to green. Do I need all of them in the palette? Absolutely not, but they're there. First up, another Cleona shade down. I sometimes forget about Chandelier. It's like, I always think of it as like a beigey tone, but it really goes from like a hot purpley pink to green, but I feel like it's not showing on camera. There we go. Yes, that's Chandelier. Okay, be right back again. So the second shade in the third row is Alphelion from Lethal Cosmetics. And you can see how it flashes more of like a warm pink to green. Oh, it's so beautiful. The third shade, I think this brand is no longer in existence. It's called Twisted Mint. And the reason why I wanted to include this is, first of all, it's a very neglected shade, partially because the brand doesn't exist anymore, and partially because when I initially got it, I wasn't super impressed by it, especially for the price and for what the marketing photos look like from the brand. But I feel like it has this taupiness to it, and it goes from like the mint to taupey to pink. Although, you know, on this hand, I don't know if it's necessary. The fourth shade in this row is Parsec, also from Lethal Cosmetics. This one is peachy pink to green. It gives me the like hot, vibrant kind of shimmers that I love. It's so funny what you see on camera versus in person. The fourth row is my pink and rose gold kind of row. Opulence from Cleona. You're getting at a very slight angle. I think I said this earlier. Opulent is the rose gold. Just the rose gold. The way it goes from gold to this like taupey beigey pink. Oh, also my hand is still slightly wet from the micellar water, so it swatched very, very, very smooth. This is one of the glitter formulas. Opulent. Opulent. Like I understand the appreciation of rose gold, and I especially understand it after owning Opulent. This next tone is Lethal Cosmetics Archetype. And this is your like warm pinky mauve. I wouldn't consider it, like it definitely leans on the warm side. Because Lethal matte formulas are soft enough and I'm uncooked chicken where I can like blend it out into a very soft shade, I can also build it up into something that's a little more, I guess, true to swatch. Another new star of my collection is Celestial Petal from Terra Moon's Cosmetics. Come on, come on. It looks so shiny and like very icy, but at some angles, it's like a very hot, almost warm red pink. It's just one of the most spectacular eyeshadows I own. It works over other colors. It works on the inner corner, on the lid. It works as a face highlighter if you are an intense motherfucker like me. So the fourth shade might be another one of those that's not available. This was in the Lethal is Dead palette, the first collaboration between Teresa and Lethal Cosmetics. But it's just such a perfect tone of pink. And I actually feel like in terms of single shadows, a lot of the pinks that I have are more pastel or neon. And I just didn't have like a pretty rosy kind of color, and it can get really vibrant and beautiful, and it can also kind of be blended out. It's the pinky pink matte that I felt like the palette really needed. So that is the fourth row. The last row in the palette is taking us from berries and reds back to green. The last Cleona shade in the palette is Ray. This is really giving you red, orange, but also pink, as you can see in the camera. It is just one of my favorite iridescent shadows, which it was really unexpected because I thought it was basically gonna be like Red Giant from Terra Moons, but more intense. But it's so wild how blue pink it looks in the camera. And then it looks very hot orange yellow. I'm so bad with the mirror. I don't understand how it functions. I don't understand the physics of using the mirror. I truly don't. I'm so confused. There we go. You can see kind of it gives me yellowy orange to red to pink to blue. Oh my god, Ray, why are you doing this to me? I love these cards so much, but they're so hard to capture. And I know that every time I pick them. Because I was already picking from the Lethal is Dead palette, I picked the deepest berry shade in that palette as well. I do know that there is a shade from Lethal Cosmetics that is in the same family, but this one is just it goes a little deeper. It's the kind of deepening shade that I just really feel like this kind of color story could benefit from. It's like a almost purpley berry. It's a really lovely color. The third shade in the final row is another absolute stunning favorite from Terra Moons. This is Bella Supernova. Now, this one popped into my head because I have used it in a very, very pink look, but it also has that red berry, and it also has a golden sparkle and shift to it. And I felt like having a red berry multichrome that's not black based in this palette is really nice because it can kind of work across a lot of different kinds of looks. And the last shade, this kind of confirmed to me why I wanted a kind of red berry row in this palette. This is Magnitude from Lethal Cosmetics. And this is a red multichrome. And I think it's technically black based, but I kind of wonder if it's more of a gray based multichrome. So it's a beautiful red to green, and it really circles back to the grungy green tones at the beginning of the palette. It's this beautiful shade that you can use in a very concentrated way, like a winged graphic shape. But I also used it as it was not a one shadow look. I used it all over my eye, and it blends out so beautifully and grungy, but not so intense like some black based multichromes. And I just think the connection of red to green really confirmed to me why I wanted the kind of range in this color story. So that is the 4th row. And that is the full retro rose glam. I don't know. That's the full BYOP of my current using builder palette, by the way, if you don't know that abbreviation. I just really enjoy this color story. I'm really into it, and I hope y'all enjoyed this. I feel like this palette is one of my favorite creations, just generally speaking, and I'm always excited to share with y'all. And I hope you enjoyed it and maybe found something, you know, enjoyable about the video. If you liked it, definitely subscribe if you're not already yet, and leave me a comment. Let me know, I don't know, let me know how you're feeling about this video. I would love to hear from y'all. Thank you so much to my patrons and my channel members. Y'all, thank you. Thank you. And if anybody feels like supporting me a little further, that is a great way to do that. I have a bunch of links in my description box. I will try to have all of the shadows listed out there, and if they're available, linked. If you have any questions whatsoever, definitely ask away in the comments. I love talking with y'all. And most importantly though, thank you for spending a bit of your day with me. And don't forget to take care of yourself better today than you did yesterday. Bye, friends.